We're kicking off with SmackDown, as during last week's show, Kevin Owens suffered a hand injury, and WWE later disclosed that the prizefighter had fractured his 4th and 5th metacarpal during the match with Grayson Waller. Fans were left wondering whether this injury is real or just part of a storyline, and it is now clear that this injury is just for the show. Owens was at the following night's WWE live event in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he teamed with LA Knight to beat Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa, and he wouldn't have wrestled if he were hurt. The so-called injury happened when Austin Theory, who was ringside for the Owens-Waller match, stomped on KO's hand into the ringside steps, and WWE filmed Owens backstage going for x-rays. Owens will be one of the 8 participants in the United States Championship #1 Contenders Tournament, which begins next Friday at the Tribute to the Troops SmackDown. At this time, Owens doesn't have a match scheduled for next week, but he could still appear backstage or cut a promo, and it's a great relief that Owens isn't actually injured. In September, after a week-long investigation, Tony Khan fired CM Punk from AEW, and while the AEW president made this decision, he did have a panel of advisors. This committee included Bryan Danielson, who is one of the most well-respected names in AEW, and this week, the American Dragon shared more about the committee. While appearing on the Maggie and Perloff show, Bryan spoke about being on the company's committee and made it clear that he likes Punk. He said, "I'm a part of the disciplinary committee. Clearly what happened has happened. I'm somebody who, I like CM Punk. I think he brought a lot to AEW while he was here. There is not a lot I can say about it, or that I want to say about it. I'm part of it. It's really funny, you know how the internet is. Some people say I was the head of the disciplinary committee. There were more than 3 people involved in this decision, but most of them were all lawyers. To say that I was the head, I don't even have a college degree. I'm not in there bossing people around. I'm part of the disciplinary committee." Bryan was asked about if it was difficult for him to advise Khan to release Punk. He said, "Absolutely. As somebody who I have a lot of empathy, I'm grateful for the time he was able to spend in AEW. He did a great job for us. I wish him the best in his future, and I hope his run there goes well." With Punk now in WWE, Triple H and his team are hoping to avoid what happened in AEW, and for Danielson, his role on the disciplinary committee was far from an easy task. It was just over 2 years ago that CM Punk made his return to professional wrestling as part of AEW, and cut a promo that outlined his reasons for coming back to wrestling and his goals. Now Punk is back with WWE and cut his first promo back on last week's Raw, and Booker T has had his say on what his fellow former world champion has had to say so far. On his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker compared Punk's debut promo in AEW and his recent promo in WWE, and spoke about the backlash he received in 2021 from some fans. He said, "I said, his return promo in AEW wasn't the best promo I ever saw. It could have had more substance to it, and a lot of people gave me backlash because I said that, because I didn't say it was the greatest promo in the world. It was a pipe bomb. In this promo on Monday night, it was a heartfelt promo, that's what I think. At points in time, CM Punk got caught up in the moment a little bit. He almost got choked up a little bit. I know this. When you leave a company and come back, you wonder how the fans are going to treat you. You wonder if they're going to boo you out of the building. You just don't know. For CM Punk, the way he left, very polarizing, and then to come back. Even in Chicago, he might have had that feeling, wondering, how's it going to be? For CM Punk to come out, not have that comfort zone on Monday of being in Chicago, wondering, how are they going to react, then they give him the ultimate pop. That does something to you. This promo that he cut, it felt like a heartfelt promo. Seemed like he was speaking from the heart. It seemed like he had some notes written, but sometimes you forget the script and just go with the heart. For me, it wasn't the greatest promo as far as I'm gonna whoop everyone's ass in the locker room promo, which is what I'm looking for a lot of the time, but it was not that. Whatever you may think of Punk, he clearly is a polarizing figure, and so far, things have been going well for Punk backstage in WWE. There are some in WWE who are optimistic that Punk and Stone Cold Steve Austin could finally face off in a dream match, but if that happens, it won't be anytime soon. A source who spoke to Ringside News said that there have been no official talks in WWE of Austin versus Punk, noting that Triple H has been on the West Coast all week, dealing with broadcast rights. Do you want to see Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin down the line? And what do you make of Booker's recent comments? Let us know in our comments down below. Long before he was the best in the world and a household name, CM Punk was a popular name on the independents who received a tryout match with WWE in 2005 on an episode of Heat. That match saw Simon Dean and Maven defeat the team of CM Punk and Russell Simpson, but that match deliberately didn't go as WWE had planned. In his latest YouTube video, Maven explained that the plan was always for himself and Dean to win, but that whoever got the pin, WWE management had instructed them to pin Punk. Maven explained that somehow, even before his debut match, Punk had garnered heat backstage, but Stevie Richards, who was friends with Punk and Maven, asked the latter for a favor. Richards asked Maven and Dean to make sure to give Punk a good showing, and during the match, Dean told Punk to roll out of the ring, and it was Simpson who ended up getting pinned. Despite his backstage heat, Punk was signed to a WWE contract and would go on to become a huge star, and it was Maven, Dean, and Richards who played a small role in helping his career out. With the return of CM Punk and Randy Orton, WWE is looking very differently than it did just a few weeks ago, and it should come as no surprise that a lot is changing backstage. A member of WWE's creative team revealed that lots of plans are in flux at the moment, but did not state what plans have been moved around. While Punk's return has certainly made an impact, the source said that Punk's return did not cause the current situation, and WWE has been discussing reshuffling some plans before Punk's return. WWE has a lot coming up in the near future, including the annual Royal Rumble, their first PLE in Australia since 2018, and of course, the milestone WrestleMania 40 event. You never know what can happen next in WWE, and their creative team is apparently working hard to alter those plans, and we'll have to wait and see what plans ultimately make it to TV. It was back at Survivor Series that Randy Orton made his WWE return, and in post-show footage, Orton signaled to the fans that he wants to be around for 10 more years. His back injury that cost him 18 months of his career raised many questions as to how long Orton will be able to continue wrestling, but it looks like the Viper will be with WWE for quite some time. Sean Ross Sapp reports that WWE is confident that Orton will ink a new deal when his current one expires, and one higher-up said that they would be surprised if WWE didn't extend his deal. Orton's deal was initially set to extend until at least the fall of 2024, but there has been talks in WWE of tacking on additional time to Orton's contract due to his injury. If that happens, Orton will remain under contract until 2026, though it's worth noting that some injured talent have not had their contracts extended with injury time. Ultimately, Orton will likely sign a new contract that'll keep him around with or without injury time added, and expect to see more of the Viper in the years to come on WWE programming. More Randy Orton news, as it was back in 2018 that the Viper won the United States title, and this past weekend, the Viper held the championship again, sort of. In footage shared by one of Logan Paul's entourage, Orton can be seen being asked to grab something off camera, which just so happened to be Paul's US title. Paul then walked in and saw Orton holding his championship, and in the end, everyone had a laugh about Orton accidentally stealing Paul's title. As for why Orton was in Logan Paul's house, that's because he's going to be the next guest on Paul's podcast, and we're sure the Viper will have plenty to say when this episode comes out. It was back in 2019 that Chris Jericho made the bold decision to sign with the upstart wrestling company AEW, a decision that has paid off for the promotion's first world champion. Jericho has been one of AEW's most regularly featured stars, and is also a former ROH world champion with the company, and expect him to work with Tony Khan for a long time to come. Jericho has made it clear that he's very happy to AEW, where in addition to being in prominent storylines like the Inner Circle and the JAS, he gets to do a lot more behind the scenes. Fightful reports that Jericho's current deal with AEW runs through at least the end of 2025, so fans have at the very least 2 more years of Chris as an all-elite talent. We will have to see what's in the future for Chris Jericho, who with AEW is able to make appearances elsewhere, a luxury never afforded to him in WWE, so expect Chris to re-sign when the time is right. During the January 2nd, 2023 episode of Monday Night Raw, Bianca Belair defended the Raw Women's title, and while the match didn't see a title change, it recently went viral. On social media, a fan shared a clip of the match which saw Belair and Bliss trade offense, and shared a clip from Scary Movie 3 which has the very same offense. In a shot-by-shot recap, you can see how Scary Movie 3 helped inspire this sequence from the Bliss-Belair match, and this is being shared all over the internet among wrestling fans. Right now, Belair is on SmackDown and feuding with Damage Control, while Bliss is on maternity leave, but perhaps a sequel is in store if the two ever share the ring again. We are looking ahead to the Royal Rumble, which is just 54 days away, and the two Rumble matches always generate excitement as fans hope for surprise returns. In 2019, Malachi Black, then known as Aleister Black, made his Royal Rumble match debut, and while he's currently with AEW, there are some hoping to see him in next month's bout. On Twitter, it was recently pointed out that Black has had 0 singles matches in AEW in 2023, which has outraged fans, many of whom believe he'd do better in WWE with Triple H now running creative. One fan stated that AEW had shown Black pathetic booking and he needs to come home, while another said that Tony Khan had made Black lose his aura. Many tagged Triple H in their tweets, hoping that the game will offer Black a deal to return, and while a Rumble return is a long shot, you can never say never in wrestling. Black's most recent singles match for AEW was back in June of 2022 when he defeated Penta Oscuro, and do you want to see the Dutchman back in WWE? Let us know in the comments. Recently, Britt Baker called out AEW for giving her 0 promo time at all throughout 2023, and in addition to not being heard, we've not seen Baker in the ring in quite a while. Baker was last seen on the September 16th edition of AEW Collision, where she made an appearance in front of her hometown in a losing effort to then TBS champion Chris Statlander. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was stated that Baker's near 2-month absence from the ring is due to various health issues, including an illness that she's been dealing with. In addition to this illness, Baker has also been nursing a back injury she's had for a while, and these issues have left her in no condition to travel, hence why she's been off TV. That explains why we haven't seen Baker compete since September, but that doesn't explain her being given no time to cut promos this year, despite being seen as one of the big stars in AEW's women's division. Hopefully Baker will make a full recovery soon and be back on AEW programming, and we're sending our absolute best to the DMD of AEW at this unfortunate time. In his short time on WWE's main roster, Dragon Lee has been a firm fan favorite, and this past weekend, the Masked Superstar made one WWE show extra special for one lucky fan. At a live event in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Lee lost to Santos Escobar thanks to a roll-up and a handful of tights, and was seen interacting with a young fan at ringside. In a heartwarming moment, Lee offered to trade masks with a young fan who was wearing a Rey Mysterio mask, though Lee made sure to keep his face as concealed as possible while switching. Lee ended up in the Rey mask while the fan got a genuine ring-worn Dragon Lee mask, and given that WWE management hope that Lee can be the next Rey Mysterio, we're sure this act went over very well backstage. Dragon Lee will face Escobar on this Friday's SmackDown on the first match of the US Titles Contender Tournament, and we're sure he'll have the fans, especially this young fan, on his side. Karrion Kross will also be part of the United States Contenders Tournament and will face Bobby Lashley in the first round, and he had a much different kind of interaction in Allentown. During the show, Kross ended up losing to Butch, and as the former NXT champion and Scarlett were making their way to the back, they spotted a sign that said, "Marry me, Scarlett." Scarlett, noticing the proposal, grabbed the sign and gave it to her husband, who tore the sign into pieces while Scarlett mocked the fan in question. That fan may not have left the PPL Center with a bride, but they left with quite the memory, as Kross and Scarlett gave them an interaction they'll not be forgetting anytime soon. Baron Corbin has been competing in WWE for years, but recently the Lone Wolf proved his skills in the world of Jiu-Jitsu. After months of preparation for a tournament, Corbin won gold last weekend in the Jiu-Jitsu World League Finals in quite the victory for the former US champion. Corbin's genuine fighting skills can't be denied, as he's also a former Golden Gloves boxer, and will need to use all his skills at this Saturday's deadline when he challenges NXT champion Ilya Dragunov. On the November 15th episode of AEW Dynamite, the Young Bucks defeated Commander and Penta El Cero Miedo, but that was not the match that was originally planned. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, the original match would have seen the Bucks face Commander and Vikingo, but there's no word on why the match ended up getting changed. Whatever the reason may be, the Young Bucks had a great match with Commander and Penta just days before losing to the Golden Jets at AEW Full Gear. Now the Bucks are taking a break from AEW programming and haven't competed in over 2 weeks, and it's believed they'll be heels once they return to TV. With the holidays nearly upon us, this is a time when people feel more generous than they may do earlier in the year, and MVP was in a particularly generous mood last night at an event in Portland. At the event, MVP threw out an open challenge to any superstar to face Omos, which was answered by Alpha Academy's Akira Tozawa to a huge pop. MVP then showed his generosity as he offered Tozawa $10,000, but to earn the money, he'd have to somehow knock the 7-foot Nigerian giant off his feet. Omos dominated for almost the entirety of the bout, but Tozawa managed to get some offense in during the final moments before he was finally put down and pinned. Unfortunately for Tozawa, he wouldn't earn the money, but he did get close to knocking Omos down before getting flattened by the Nigerian giant. WWE often uses live events to test ideas for the main roster, and do you think MVP's $10,000 challenge should be used on WWE TV? Let us know in the comments below. At last weekend's NCAA Big 12 Championship game, WWE had quite the presence, with several stars and even The Undertaker being at the game, and Jade Cargill went further in representing WWE. During a break in the action, Cargill was backstage to present Nelly with a replica Undisputed WWE Universal Championship in recognition of his epic halftime performance. It's the first time that Cargill has represented WWE in this way, and while the company are in no hurry to rush her arrival on the main roster, the fact that they already see her as someone who can represent the brand bodes very well for her future. We mentioned that WWE sent some of its big names to the championship game, and that includes somebody that fans haven't seen on TV for a long time. Sheamus was at last weekend's game in his first appearance for WWE in over 100 days, as he's been out nursing what's believed to be quite the serious injury. Since we last saw Sheamus in August, a lot has changed in wrestling, and we are hoping for a full and speedy recovery for the Celtic Warrior. Last year, The Undertaker took his rightful spot in the WWE Hall of Fame after an incredible career, and recently, the Phenom put the call out for a name from AEW to be inducted. When asked on his 6 Feet Under podcast whether Dustin Rhodes should be inducted, Undertaker said he is absolutely worthy of the honor and hopes that Dustin being in AEW won't stop an induction. On Twitter, fans agreed with the dead man, with one saying, "This isn't even a debate," another stating that it should have happened years ago, while another joked that Stardust should induct him. A former Intercontinental Tag Team and Hardcore Champion, the bizarre Goldust pushed the envelope in his time. And do you think Dustin should be inducted? Sound off in the comments. And we're ending with video game news, as earlier this year, NetherRealm Studios released its Mortal Kombat 1 game, which, despite the name, is the 12th main entry in the series, and is a reboot following the 2019 release of Mortal Kombat 11. The trailer for the game featured the Animal Batista, and now John Cena, or more rather, Peacemaker, is coming to the game. This week, fans caught their first glimpse of Peacemaker in the game, and the character is being voiced by Cena, and we're sure that plenty of fans will be eager to play as Cena's Suicide Squad character.